Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing when you should text your ex Merry Christmas. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing when you should text your ex Merry Christmas. So if you've been through a breakup, it can be confusing whether or not you should text your ex Merry Christmas. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 instances when you should text your ex Happy Christmas. So let's get straight into this. And point number 1 is if you're the dumper and want them back. So if you're listening to this as a dumpee, please keep listening because I will be getting to your perspective very, very shortly. But first of all, we're speaking about if you're the dumper. Now, if you're the dumper, it is absolutely up to you to reach out to your ex. I very much suggest that if you ended a relationship and you change your mind, it is up to you to reach out. Whereas with dumpees, with a dumpee, I would say, in my opinion, you should never text your ex again unless they contact you first. As a dumper, it's absolutely up to you to reach out and to send that contact. Now, there is one caveat to this, dumpers, and this is you need to be sure, if you're going to do this at Christmas time, that you really are considering reconnecting. Now, what I mean by this is as a dumper, you might not necessarily want your ex back, but it gets to Christmas time and you think, well, I want to send my ex Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, whatever it is you may want to say. And I do not believe you should be doing this unless you're fairly certain in your thoughts and feelings, but you at least want to see how things can go from this point. Now, obviously, at any time of year, I would want you to be somewhat certain in your growing feelings for your ex to reach out. That is obviously the case. I don't want you leading your ex on at any time of year. But when it comes to Christmas Day, this is a time and a moment where some dumpers might be more inclined to reach out, even though they have very little interest at all. Now, this could be due to worry, it could be due to pity, it could be due to guilt, but not necessarily actually wanting your ex back. Now, you're not necessarily going to know for certain if you want to reconnect until you've had some conversations and probably met up a few times. I know that, I appreciate that, but you need to be at least in the mindset that this could be something that maybe you're interested in progressing and exploring. Yes, you might be feeling guilt, but do you actually feel a missing for your ex? Now, ordinarily, I would be saying, well, if you're thinking of texting your ex, the likelihood is that you're thinking about them and you're missing them to some degree, and that is true. But Christmas Day does bring that feeling where you might want to be texting and communicating with lots of people that potentially you don't speak to much anymore. It's one of those days of the year where lots of people will send out these group kind of texts. And I want you to be very, very careful that you don't just send Happy Christmas to everybody in your contact list, including your ex, unless you have some genuine feelings of potentially seeing how things go, because this could really, really rock the boat of your dumpee. As I've already said, you might not know for certain if you want to reconnect. That's absolutely fine, that's understandable, but you at least need to have the mindset that you're open to conversation, open to meeting, open to actually seeing how things maybe could go in the future. If you don't have any thoughts of this, if you're purely wanting to reach out because you feel upset that you upset your ex and you want to just say Merry Christmas, although you might be doing this from the right place, it's not going to help your dumpee. It's going to really lead them on into thinking that something magical could be happening between you. And if you've got no interest in this, it's not going to help. So please, dumpers, think long and hard. If you don't text your ex, they might be upset on the day, But if it's for the reason that you don't want to reconnect, then as the future approaches, they will start to understand They will realise that you did it for the right reason. You didn't text them because you didn't want to reconnect. So I'm not going to deny the fact that your dumpee might be upset if you don't text them, but if you text them for the wrong reason, they're going to be upset for longer, and it's probably going to hold them back further. Don't give somebody false hope, okay? So if you're going to say Merry Christmas to somebody that you've dumped, make sure it's because you actually want to have a conversation with the potential of maybe actually one day getting back together. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. And point number 2 is if you're the dumpee and you receive a text. So as we've just been speaking about, I do believe that if you're the dumper, you should be reaching out to your ex the dumpee. Now, if you're the dumpee and you receive a text from your ex the dumper, I do believe you should respond. And in this instance, you should respond with your own version of Merry Christmas, Happy Christmas, whatever it is you like to say. Now, sometimes dumpees want to play a game. They're thinking, right, I need to try and get this power back. My ex has texted me. I'm going to wait 3 days before I respond. Now, in my opinion, although you do need to realign the balance of power, playing a game like this is not going to help you. In this day and age, there is no reason why somebody can't find the 5 seconds it would take to read a text and to respond. If you don't respond in the same day, it looks like you're playing a game. And if I know you're playing a game, your ex-dumper is going to know you're playing a game. And any power balance realignment is going to be lost because they're going to recognise exactly what you're doing. Now, this doesn't mean that you've got to respond within 1 minute. Absolutely not. If you're busy, you keep doing what you're doing, and it's Christmas Day. The likelihood is you could be busy. So my suggestion is you respond the same day. Unless, of course, the text you get is really late at night. If it's really late at night, then it's understandable that you won't respond until the following day. But by and large, if you receive a text at 10 a.m, then I suggest you respond when you naturally can. That might not be until 2 or 3 p.m, okay? That is understandable. You could be busy. However, if you don't respond for 2 or 3 days, it's going to look like you're playing a game, okay? That's almost as bad as if you reply within 30 seconds, which looks really needy and desperate. So create a bit of balance here. So if you receive a text and you're not busy, I still don't suggest you respond instantaneously. Wait 30 minutes, wait an hour, that's fine. But don't play games over many days. It looks very obvious and it's not going to help your cause. And at the end of the day, if you're listening to this podcast, you want to get your ex back. So you're a dumpee, you want to reconnect with your dumper. So why play games? Why try and quote unquote punish them, even though you might feel angry, frustrated, bitter about them dumping you? You want to try and reconnect. It's Christmas Day. They've sent you Merry Christmas. This is an opportunity to try and grow something. And if you were to respond in a negative way, that's not going to help you either. So it's not just about making sure you respond within a timely fashion. It's important that you respond in the right way. If they send you a happy Christmas text, you've got to send something similar back. Don't respond by saying something negative, like, oh, here you are, I haven't heard from you in 6 months, and you think you can just do this? Something like that is not going to help. Christmas Day is a day of thoughtfulness. It's a day of being forgiving. It's a day of love. It's a day of family. It's the type of day where people try to put their best self front and centre, and that's what you've really got to be thinking about. So even though I'm sure you've got some negativity towards your dumper, you obviously want to try and reconnect, else you wouldn't be listening to this now. So think about it logically. If you say something negative to your ex, do you really think this is going to help your cause? I doubt it very much. Respond with Merry Christmas and ask them a question to try and grow that conversation. Now, I don't suggest you ask a question about relationships, dating, your breakup. Don't ask a question if they're dating anybody. Don't ask a question about your relationship or the breakup that you had. Just make sure that you ask something nice, something as simple as, how's your day been so far? That's nice, that's simple. Grow the conversation, see where it develops. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back. Maybe you want help regarding the type of communication that you need to be doing. How do you grow this conversation, which might theoretically happen? The communication stage can be choppy waters. If you want advice and support on any of these aspects, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about when you should text your ex Merry Christmas. And point number 3 is if December has shown positive signs. So this is a little bit in depth, so please keep listening through as to what I actually mean by this. Now, when I say if December has shown positive signs, the first clue in this is it is December. So please remember this, because it doesn't matter if you had positive signs, even in November or October or obviously further back than that. In my opinion, that doesn't count. We need positive signs within the month of December. It needs to be very close by to Christmas Day itself in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Now, when I say positive signs, I'm talking about your ex, the dumper, reaching out to you, the dumpee. So that means that they've sent you the text. They're not responding to something you've sent. They have reached out to you for no particular reason, and you recognize that they didn't have to do it. So when you read that text, you knew it was unnecessary. They didn't have to text you. And from that point, you maybe had a conversation, but perhaps you haven't yet got back together, but you left that chat feeling positive. Okay, that's what we're looking for here. So if your ex-dumper sent you an unnecessary text in December and it was positive, it doesn't count. If they sent you an unnecessary text and it was horrible, that is not a positive sign, unfortunately. We're talking about positives. So your ex-dumper reaches out for no real reason. It was a nice little chat. It didn't go anywhere. Maybe you didn't know what to say, or maybe you were both busy, but for whatever reason, you had a nice chat, but then it came to an end, and maybe you haven't heard from them in a couple of weeks. If you have had that experience, dumpees, I do believe that you can reach out to your ex, the dumper, on Christmas Day and say Merry Christmas. So whereas in point number 2, I was saying you should be saying Merry Christmas if your ex, the dumper, reaches out to you first, if you fit into the point number 3 bracket of receiving this unnecessary positive contact in the month of December, then I think you can actually reach out to your dumper. I think that's absolutely fine. If you consider the situation, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, you had a positive interaction. If you don't reach out to your ex, then it almost seems a little awkward. Now, you could argue, well, why shouldn't they message me first? That is a fair point and a fair argument. But I do believe that you have the scope in this rare instance to reach out yourself. Now, I don't suggest you do it instantly. Your dumper reaching out to you is always the best possible situation. So we want to give them opportunity. So if you're going to play this card, I suggest you don't do it until later in the day. Give your dumper every possibility to reach out to you. So I don't suggest you wake up on Christmas Day and text your ex Merry Christmas at 6 a.m. or at 10 a.m. or at 2 p.m. or even at 5 p.m. But I think if you get to the evening time and you haven't heard from your dumper so far, maybe it's 6, 7, 8 p.m., whatever you deem as the evening, I think that then you have the opportunity to send your ex a Merry Christmas text. And it doesn't have to be particularly elaborate. I would suggest you sending Merry Christmas, hope you've had a great day, and if you wanted to tag on a question, you could. It's always best to, in my opinion, because it does give that chance of growing the conversation. Now, some people might think, well, you don't need to with a Christmas text because it's a natural thing where if you want to chat, you will automatically respond. It's just one of those things. I agree with you in this instance. Maybe you just do want to put Merry Christmas, hope you have a great day with a smiley emoji or something. In that regard, your ex is likely to respond, even though there is no question asked, because it is the thing to do. That's how people react. But if you can think of a positive question, then you could absolutely add that on as well, because it probably would increase the chance of a response by a little bit. And if we can improve our odds, we need to be doing this. Now, it probably goes without saying that if, unfortunately, you don't receive a response from your ex in this instance, then you need to move into my version of a no contact rule once more, which I believe you should never be contacting your ex again unless they contact you first. So yes, you could reach out in this rare instance, but if they don't respond to you, you're back into no contact. And that also means that you don't break no contact in the very near future when it's New Year's Eve. Because New Year's Eve is also around the corner in a week's time. And that is a scenario where people will also be wondering whether they should be texting their ex or not. But unfortunately, if you've not had a reply for Christmas Day, I don't think you should be doing that. So just bear that in mind. But hopefully you will get that response because you had a positive interaction a few weeks ago, and you can try and grow it and maybe this time move it forward and arrange to meet at some point. That would obviously be the ideal. So if it's Christmas Day and you're wondering, should I text my ex or not? Hopefully this podcast has helped you. If you believe it has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.